Hey, I get a lot of questions time after time in the real estate business, but one of the ones that I get most often from sellers or potential sellers is it the right time for me to sell my property? And I get it. I mean, real estate investments, whether it's your primary residence or an investment property, it's a big purchase. There's a lot of your equity and probably a lot of your wealth wrapped up in those. So I get the concern of, do I sell now? Could I wait a while and maybe make a little bit more money? If I put it on the market, is anybody going to be interested in it? And am I going to be able to get my price? I get all of those concerns, but the reality is most of those questions that people have in the beginning, you won't know until you take the first step. You have to get the home on the market before you can find out how the market reacts. You have to get an offer to determine whether or not it's going to be an acceptable price. So when they're looking for things of whether it's the right time, then there's a couple of things to keep in mind. First, in my experience, 18 years selling here along the Grand Strand, most sellers make the decision to move on from their property when it makes financial sense and they think about, you know what, if I didn't own this, if I was able to get it sold, what would that allow me to do? Would it allow me to go move into the new neighborhood that I'm thinking about? Would it allow me to move across country, spend more time with my friends, with my family, my kids, grandkids? Does it allow me to travel more? There's usually some inherent motivation behind that. And when that motivation makes sense and somebody takes the step of putting the home on the market, if the financial decision makes sense, meaning you can get something that financially, you can work with that offer, then your motivation and it being a good financial decision, they usually say, okay, let's go ahead and make this move. But there's not a great time or a bad time to sell. It just depends on where you're at in your journey with that property. Now, the other thing that I would really remind people of is it feels like we're always trying to time the market and we're trying to figure out whether or not if I held it for a few more months, could I make a little bit more money? There's people that in the last 2 or 3 years have bought a property, they were thinking of selling it, and they waited a couple of months, and you know what? They actually made a little bit more when they decided to sell. There's also people in the last couple of years that had a property, and they waited, and they actually took a little bit less than had they sold when they originally thought about it. So again, it goes back to motivation and then figuring out, once you get the opportunity to decide, I've got an offer in front of me, does it make sense? That's when you make the decision. And remember, timing the market, it's a fantasy. The people that you talk to and they say, oh, I timed it, I bought it at the perfect time, I sold it at the perfect time. Listen, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. They probably didn't know that until they were looking back on it. And then they say, look how smart I am. But no one can time the market. You make the decisions that's right for you at the right time, and that can be in any market. It just depends on what your goal is.